everybody. I have a statement. So let me just start by saying that I've been completely devastated by these allegations since they were made. John's behavior was wrong, period. I've worked hard to build a team of hard workers who wake up every single day committed to delivering for the people of the District of Columbia. And we all swear to foster a workplace that reflects our policies and our values, and to make decisions not motivated by fear or favor. So if any individual violates these policies or my expectations for a sexual harassment-free workplace, including John, they will be held accountable. We have a roadmap about how to address these allegations in my sexual harassment order that I issued in 2017. And we followed that roadmap with fidelity. I received the confidential report from the MOC, and the parties received a summary of the findings. A similar summary was posted to the MOC's website on Saturday. I know that there's been a lot of criticism about not holding the report until the next workday, and that criticism should be directed to me and to me alone. I briefed relevant council oversight chairs. I'm producing an after-action report for the government to address any weaknesses in policy or procedure. And from the moment the complaint was filed 3 months ago, we've been anticipating changes. We respect the council's legitimate oversight role and will work with them to the extent that our employees, both the complainants and witnesses, are protected in detailed briefings and discussions of next policy steps. We are preparing a detailed after-action report on any actions that have taken place to date and any upcoming necessary steps. At the conclusion of the second report, I will ask the investigator for a debrief on findings and where an OIG management review could be helpful. Any questions? Yes. The question was, will after-action report be made public? The answer is yes. You have to be more specific. Let me get to him a microphone. Okay.
I'm sorry. I think some of the council members felt that it should have been done by an outside group, the investigation, and not by the council's office.
As I started out, Peter, we have a roadmap. The mayor's order on sexual harassment outlines exactly what happens when there is a claim made, and that's exactly what we did. And I'm confident in that process.
Question about timeline. So March 8th is when the accuser details the allegations in an email.
Now, I don't have dates in front of me, so I'm not going to respond to dates.
Well, it was on March 8th the accused reached out to you, the legal counsel. On the 10th, the investigation began. Falchicchio doesn't leave government until a week later on Friday. Was he on payroll? What was his status in the government between that week you learned
I'm going to ask
allegations?
Vanessa to talk to dates. I think they're outlined also in the summary.
Thank you, Mayor. Wait. Is this better? Okay. So the complaint arrived March 8th, early evening, in an email with a letter attachment directed to the mayor and the director of the mayor's office of legal counsel, Eugene Adams.
Really, but what happened between March 10th and 17th? Was Falchicchio still on the payroll? Was he still in his job? Was he suspended with pay?
As per the procedures that are outlined in the mayor's sexual harassment order, he was placed on administrative leave immediately.
On Monday.
On Monday, yeah.
That's with pay, that's part of the...
Yes, yes. And that happens in any investigation. It is also available to the complainant.
Given that the initial announcement was sort of incomplete at best, that he was leaving for the private sector, and that this was released on a Saturday, the findings, how can people trust that the second complainant will be, that people can trust this investigation is done thoroughly and that people can, respect the findings?
Thank you. I think it's clear that I don't understand timing, and I was just very happy to be done with the report and to get it out. When it comes to trust and trusting lawyers, I understand that misgiving as well. However, our investigator did an exhaustive investigation, thousands of emails, 21 interviewees, 32 interviews. I'm not exaggerating when I say hundreds of hours of thinking, talking, writing. That's what you can trust. I stand behind our report and the findings 100%. And I know I shouldn't say it, but I don't think there could be any better report written on sexual harassment allegations.
Can I ask about the lack of criminal referral? And did Chief Benedict stay for this? Because I'm just wondering, it sounds to those of us who are not attorneys that unwanted sexual conduct, exposing oneself, and then thousands of unwanted text emails constitutes a crime. And most of us, many of us, would call the police and report such behavior if it happened to our daughter or somebody like that. Can you tell us how the findings that you substantiated do not rise to the level of criminal behavior? And can you give us any insight into the process of that decision?
There are some things that are confidential that I cannot say, but I want you to know that, yes, sometimes unwanted touching and sexual harassment and behaviors associated with it are a crime. In this case, in this matter, with these specific allegations, we do not find that. And I did not refer or call MPD to make an investigation or whatnot. However, I'd like to note at the time and that the complainants have exceptional lawyers who I am sure know how to call the police or do what they need to do. So that's as much as I can explain, but we did not see that in this.
Mayor Bowser, your statement just said that you essentially did not know about the accusations and what Mr. Falchicchio was found to have been doing according to this report. There was a mention inside the report of him treating the office as a dating pool, giving preferential treatment to people he found attractive, and we have a second complainant who has come forward. Are you saying unequivocally that you did not know about these allegations or this environment happening in this office?
I'd like to answer that. The mayor cannot answer that. That is completely inappropriate at this point here. We are in the middle of a second investigation. I will assure you as well that anyone here or in DEMPED or EOM, if they witnessed these allegations or have knowledge or may have knowledge of it, we reached out to interview them.
It's inappropriate to ask if the mayor knew about something that you all had in your report about a broader...
This is still an ongoing personnel. It's a very sensitive investigation. Perhaps you can ask that after all this is over, but right now, yes, it is inappropriate.
Can you tell us if the mayor was one of the 20 plus people who were interviewed as part of the investigation?
No, I cannot. All of the interviewees' identities are confidential. In fact, the final report that we gave to the mayor, all of the interviewees are numbered. That wasn't kind of easy keeping track of everything. The sexual harassment officer knows who all the numbers are as well as I do. But other than that, the interviewees or witnesses or complainants, we are not identifying them. I understand why you would say that. It is not a report for public consumption. It is an internal sexual harassment investigation. However, these kind of investigations or other workplace investigations sometimes become a part of litigation, part of discovery. What's important to note there is most of the time there are like protective orders on what can be shared and what not. What's important here is the protection of the complainants. And, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I thought she paused, and I thought she was
I was thinking. Sorry.
If
Yeah.
you're thinking, that's not allowed in the press.
Okay. All right. I get it.
In situations like former Mayor Cuomo, that if things were redacted, numbers were used. There's ways to protect identity, but be able to restore trust in the process by releasing a more comprehensive report.
So I understand. I don't know anything about Governor Cuomo. What I'm trying to say here is the summary that we created, the MOLC wrote it up, is just a summary of the findings. However, we did throw in the methodology and as well as some of the data and numbers. It's a 65-ish page report, detailed, granular, to the point that it could confuse you, but the investigator understands what she was writing and how she made her decisions. It contains credibility assessments. It contains further questions that may want to go for something else. I understand there's, trust. I don't know what you can't trust about a report that substantiates sexual harassment against a deputy mayor.
I have a question. I have a question about the overall report. You investigated sexual harassment complaints, substantiating some, not others. Did your report, without details, look at the expenditure of public monies by John in carrying out these sexual harassments? Did you look in depth at monies that may have been spent, government resources that may have been used, campaign funds that may have been used in the carrying out of these sexual activities? And the second question is, have you had any contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office, which may or may not be interested in the criminal aspects of his sexual activity?
No, and no. Can I explain the purview? Okay. All right. The investigator was empowered by the responsibilities and jurisdiction imposed from the mayor in this sexual harassment order. The scope, which I understand people think is a small one, however, it is an important one, and it's on the allegations of a complainant. If the allegations had anything about money and whatnot, we could have gone that way. But in this case, that is not within the scope. That does not mean it doesn't exist or occur, but that would be for another investigation, but not this one.
And the U.S. Attorney? And the U.S. Attorney?
Yeah, we know who they are. No one's called me. I think they're satisfied as well, I would think. I haven't heard anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Usually in these sorts of cases, there is a financial settlement paid out. I'm just curious, how does that process play out? When does the public become aware of what if any financial settlement is paid out and what that settlement would be to the victims?
So in this case, which I think in a lot of the beginning of investigations and whatnot, there's no litigation yet. So when it comes to settlement and that kind of thing, so that's separate. However, there may be discussions and whatnot. From my work at the MOLC, I know that any government monies, any monies paid out to anyone is a public record, and there's no reason this wouldn't be either.
Mayor Bowser, you said that you were devastated by this. Could you describe a little bit more about how this has impacted you personally, given that Mr. Falcicchio was part of your inner circle for so long?
I'm not here to talk about me personally. My responsibility is to my employees and the entire DC government. And I feel very strongly that any accusations, allegations for sexual harassment follow my order, that the accuser is separated from the accused immediately, and that any necessary personnel actions take place. Here's the bottom line. We got a complaint, we initiated an investigation, and the accused person left the government just over a week later. We have investigated, and I appreciate all of the witnesses and the complainants for their bravery in coming forward and being candid so that I could have an honest assessment of what happens. And my commitment, based on all that I know, is to make it right. Any other questions? Yes.
Council members are calling for a independent investigation. Will you do that? And why was this released on a Saturday over a holiday weekend?
I mentioned already, and it has been mentioned again by Vanessa, that when the findings went out to the parties, the decision was made by me that the public should have access to that information as soon as possible. That happened to be on a Saturday. Now, you may criticize, maybe I should have waited until yesterday to do it and hold it for 3 days. I made a different decision. What was the first part of your question?
It was an internal investigation. Why was it independent? Well, why isn't there
the
not
mayor's
an
order lays out how allegations are handled for sexual harassment, from the frontline worker all the way up to the cabinet member. And that's the process that we followed.
Met Mrs. Halle, she was very clear that she was going to release no information to the public.
That's correct.
You intimated that you might have a little flexibility there. Can you talk about your decision to I think some of us were surprised at how much detail was actually included in the summary that was released. Can you talk about your decision to release that much detail, both of the substantiated allegations and the unsubstantiated allegations that are now part of public record?
Well, in consultation with the MOC and the way the MOC, the findings were listed that were protective of the DC government, our employees, our witnesses, and our complainants, I thought it was written in a way that could be shared with the public. My first goal is to make sure that I send a clear message to my employees that there are avenues, if there's something wrong in your workplace, to go down, whether it's sexual harassment or EEO or any complaint. We want you to come forward. And I want to send a clear message that your allegations will be taken seriously and investigated. And the findings, to the extent that they are shareable, I think that we should share them. Now, keeping in mind, I don't want anything that I do to have a chilling effect on the investigation that continues or on anybody else coming forward. And that's why that's where we are.
Mayor, you mentioned that you had briefed some council members already on the contents of the investigation. Can you talk about who you've spoken with already? And some council members have said to me that they would appreciate, especially once the second investigation ends, some sort of confidential briefing that gives them a sense of what's going on as they weigh whether to do an independent investigation of their own. Is that something you'd be open to?
I think, again, I would have to consult with our attorneys. I will kind of give you my default right now is that I think it should be focused on the relevant committee chairs. And this is my experience. When you tell even one person something, there is an opportunity for that information to spread out. And I think the reason why you don't know who our complainants are is because very few people know. The more people who know, I have trouble keeping that confidence. And that's not to say that I don't recognize the legitimate oversight role of the council. So my discussions have been focused on how I can get them what they need with the overall objectives of the government.
So which council members have you briefed already?
I'm not going to talk about individual conversations.
React or respond to the House Republicans, the draft in the riders?
Can we have a separate conversation about that? My team was trying to give me a briefing on that today, and I wanted to keep my thoughts focused on the right now. But I'm happy to follow up with you.
You mentioned the potential OIG involvement. Can you just walk through what that would look like, how that would come to be?
Well, I mentioned in my statement that I think that we would benefit. There were a couple of the conversations council members noted. In some of the findings, there were mentioned rumors or perceptions of practices in the government that we don't want any perception to take hold that's not true. And I want to hear from the investigator when she is done with her second report to get a debrief on what she thinks would be helpful questions to follow up on. I think the appropriate venue for that is a management review. The OIG conducts management reviews of processes all the time, and I think that would be the appropriate way to go. I'm not like altogether there because I haven't gotten the second report. Yeah.
$750 million deficit. What kind of cuts are you looking at, and how will this impact?
The question was about Metro and its deficit. We're going to have lots of conversations. As you know, throughout this budget debate, I have raised and on Tom's air and other discussions with you guys about my concerns about the Metro fiscal cliff that relates to reduced ridership, it relates to federal funding going away, and it presents a big bill for all three jurisdictions. So I've been briefed by Metro leadership, the city administrator has been briefed, and I will have continued discussions with my counterparts in Maryland and Virginia. Yes.
Mayor, you both today mentioned the second investigation,
Yeah.
and that a lot of the decisions wait that investigation. What is the timeline when we think we might have it?
Yeah, one thing that we learned in this, and I'm probably saying too much, I'll turn to Vanessa, and we all know of investigations. My mayor's order puts a 60-day clock on investigations. And that's kind of unfair to investigators because once they get in it, they may discover that they need more time. So that investigation I think, is also approaching its 60 days, and I think that they are trying to stay as close to that as possible.
Just to be clear, it's not necessarily imminent, but it's not months and months away. A ballpark suggestion of how much more time?
One thing I have learned in talking to you all is I don't give dates and specific times because I'm always wrong at that. I will say, just to note, the second investigation in consultation with complainants' lawyers was paused so the investigator could draft the first report. That was probably 3 weeks. She has already begun resuming the second investigation. My answer to when it will be done is soon. But I want you to know we do keep in mind how important this is, most importantly to the complainant, that we get it right and we do it thoroughly, but we also do it in time so people can trust the experience. But thank you.
How soon after the summary, the report was given to the parties, was it posted online?
So it might be, I think I waited maybe half an hour, but I let the parties know that they were getting their findings. Their findings are a little different than the summary. They have the details that would point to the complainant and other things that we took out of the other summary. So about an hour. I didn't post it. I sent it to be posted. So I don't know how to post anything. Okay.
Mayor, can I ask, if the council does pursue an independent investigation, will you be supportive of that?
I have to say that I believe in the order that we issued and the process that took place. And I think that there was a main allegation of sexual harassment against a deputy mayor that was substantiated. So I don't know what else an investigation would look into. What I do think, where there were some areas where there remain questions, I will put in the category of looking at those management practices and reviews around things that were outside of the scope of this investigation. But even then, I want to get a kind of a full download on those impressions.
And just to be clear, when you say the management review, you're referring to allegations of hiring or promotions that would have been driven by
that were related
sexual
to the sexual harassment claim, correct. That's what I'm referring to. I don't know that I have your answers right now, Mark. Can you give me a little bit? Okay, thank you guys.